I'm not completely picking it. There's some very good work out there across the spectrum on piracy, but it's always read the footnotes, always read the endnotes, because you'd be amazed how many times, especially in an IDEA Logs book, how many times there's actually no support for what they're claiming. They put an endnote, and so everybody assumes, they got to support it and document it, and then you find out it has absolutely nothing to do with. But there's a footnote there. So anyway, my micro rant.
We know all about that.
I think,
actually,
people.
The sources.
People do that a lot with Avery, and they use Daniel Defoe's book, and I'm like, I'm not sure that's a historical document, and like people would cite it. So that's always a bummer. Whenever I'm looking up anything about Avery, I'm making sure it's not from Defoe.
Yeah, the fictionalized account. Yeah, it's it's like I said, I don't know how to fix the problem. You can write books on the subject, you can write blog posts, you can go on shows and tell people this, and they still end up believing. I mean, just look at politics right now. You can pile facts on top of people, and there
a lot of categories actually.
Yeah, they're fundamentally not going to. Yeah, well, we've all been there. Even growing up, we've had, you don't need to go out with that person. They're an asshole, and you do anyway. But over time, in theory, you start learning and getting smarter. But
there's a
nice thing about
this.
If you look back,
facts.
But the thing for me, the saving grace is that if you look through history, it goes up and down, and I suspect that even what we're going through now, locally, nationally, there'll be a backlash to it, and things will sort out until a generation later people forget about it, and we screw it all up again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's what we go through cycles. I think that's a very good point. We're going through a really bad one now with this whole flat Earth thing, but I do have a question pertaining to that here in just a second. But Casey, you want to go ahead and ask what you were going to ask a second ago? Excuse me.
Oh, I wasn't going to ask. I wasn't going to ask anything. I was just going to. They were talking about eye patches, so I was going to tell my eye patch story, because they were talking about people wearing eye patches, and so that's all. I used to wear an eye patch. I was born blind in one eye, and the doctors fixed it with eye patches. So I used to wear an eye patch when I was little. It wasn't when you're a little kid and people pick on you, but my mom did a really cool thing. I was telling Kyle and Dave, she would get the adhesive, Band-Aid kinds, and she would draw stuff on the patch. And so kids at school would want to know, hey, what's on your eye patch today? So it wasn't so bad, but yeah. So
I would have thought that was cool.
A faux pirate.
Faux piracy.
I will say one
thing
real quick.
Sure.
And this may have come up probably started by the Mythbusters episode, and then some doctor wrote an article on it. If you see a pirate or anybody at sea wearing an eye patch, it was because they lost an eye, like I said earlier, not because it made them see better, or because I've had somebody ask me that, it's because they could see better when they fought under decks. And I said they didn't fight under decks. They chopped holes in the deck and threw explosives down there to flush everybody out. All you have to do is put it on some silly-ass popular show, and everybody will believe it. I had one of the directors on Black Sails want to do an opening shot about bouncing a cannonball, a round shot, off the water, because they'd seen it on a show. And it's like, no, it didn't happen. It's called a drown shot because it goes in the water and it stays there. But
cannonballs don't bounce.
You can skip them across flat water in a harbor. What this came from was a late 16th century book that said that if you're going to make a mistake in aiming, it's better to make a mistake aiming low than high, because the shot might bounce off the water and hit the hull. Okay, it might, but most of the time it's not going to do that. And you can skip them across in harbors, but somebody misreads this, they're going to test it, try to prove it, and then you got a director saying it, and then you have people asking you questions about. You ever tried to skip a rock in the surf? It doesn't really skip it. It's
yes, and I never could do it. And I always my brother could skip them perfectly, but I never could get one of them. Still to this day, I think I tried a year
in
ago.
flat water, but go down to San Diego when the surf's up and try skipping. It's not going to skip. It's pretty much going to sink. You need a nice.
You said something a minute ago. Interesting though. When you talk about the eye patch, number one, I don't see why anybody would think that one less eye is better than two. So I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. Two eyes is always better. But you said that they would carve out holes in the wall and throw explosives down to get them out. That doesn't seem like a good option on a boat.
Well, it's what you have is we have a misconception of how boarding actions were fought. Naval actions sometimes were fought with crews on the deck, and where one crew would try to resist the other. But for most merchant ships and also small naval vessels attacked by a much larger one, they would retreat to something that's called closed quarters. They would barricade themselves behind the bulkheads at the forecastle or the quarterdeck, and these could be very, very intricate. They were reinforced. They had loopholes. They had small ports where you could take the cannon and turn them in line with the ship and fire into the borders. So basically, and John Smith of Pocahontas fame, Jamestown fame, basically said that was the worst sort of fighting in the world, worse even than trenches on land. You're on a rolling ship, you boarded her, and your enemy is completely barricaded, and they're turning the waist of that ship into a kill zone. So how do you flush these people out? You try to suppress their fire. It's very modern. Militaries do the same thing today. And you've got boarding axes, and that, by the way, is where the name the boarding axe comes from. It's because it was used to chop holes. You take those in crowbars and you try to pry up planks, and then you start launching smoke bombs, grenades, anything else you can, because people can't breathe. Those things produce a lot of smoke, and people can't breathe. You choke them and flush them out. And this is really how a lot of boarding actions were fought, and they would go on for hours. Sometimes there are accounts of ships literally fighting, trying to breach these close quarters as fortification for hours. Black Sails, season 1, the opening episode, they kind of alluded to this. I'm a historical consultant saying, well, this is how you do it. You need to be chopping this. So, instead the captain and his crew get behind close quarters and the pirates roll a barrel and the bulkhead blows up, and, much more effective in Hollywood. So it's like I said, that 50% rule I was talking about, that was half correct. So better than nothing.
You mentioned Pocahontas. Now I have Colors of the Wind stuck in my head. So
sorry about that. Yeah, my oldest daughter.
That's okay. I love
in her mid-20s now. I remember her Pocahontas shoes. That movie came out.
I used to. You can tell obviously that I'm gay because I love musicals, and anytime somebody mentions a musical, I instantly get whatever the song is from that stuck in my head, and I can't get it out. So it's pleasant.
Honestly, I couldn't tell. I have no instinct, natural judgments for people's sexuality. It's one of those areas I taste totally. It's whatever. It's
Gaydar is off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I used to love watching Camelot. And I could think of it. I've actually seen several back in the 80s. I guess the revivals of a whole bunch of. I saw Richard Burton and Richard Harris in Camelot on stage. Richard Burton looked drunk. Richard Harris was good, but a lot of those back then. So
excellent.
My favorite musical. My favorite musical is The Producers. I love The Producers.
Yes.
That's a good one.
That's a good one too. Anything Goes is mine. Which, ironically, was on a boat. It was it takes place on a boat, so that's very fitting. Where was I? I got musicals now stuck in my head. I'm off my tangent.
I just maybe this will help. I just want to add in a note on peg legs and eye patches and stuff. When it comes to pirates, when they were doing some raid, when they were taking a ship, or whatever they were doing, if you lost like a limb, or if you lost something while this was going on, there would generally be some reimbursement. So if you actually successfully pull this stuff off, then you get the booty, and that is the technical term, by the way, booty. So you get that stuff.
I was waiting. I've been waiting this whole time to make that joke.
So you get that stuff first, and then before you distribute it in normal shares, you would give the person who lost a limb some reimbursement depending on what they lost.
Well, still though, I don't know if there's a amount of money that I would be okay with for losing a body part. I guess if you have to, if you lose it, it's better than nothing. But I don't know how I would equate that or justify that.
Yeah, a lot of merchant seamen didn't have that. And if it wasn't written into their articles, they literally knew. And that's why they often wouldn't fight. If they lost a limb, which was quite possible in action, they were cripples, basically. If you go go to the Rijksmuseum, they have an incredible digital collection, extremely high res. And also, they removed any copyright restrictions. You could use it for just giving them a plug, any commercial or personal purposes, whatever I want. But if you start looking through there for, you can look for wooden legs or just look, almost every illustration is of a beggar, basically, because these, once you lost a limb, you couldn't work anymore. We have quotes from seamen who basically have said, I'm not going to fight because I'll be a beggar if I lose my arm or my leg. I can't do anything anymore.
Did lots of them get scurvy?
I don't know that too many pirates got scurvy because they ate pretty well. They never really were out at sea for long voyages. That really has to do more with, being way out at sea and long voyages. Plus, pirates tended to suck down rum punch anyway, and that's basically rum and key limes and sugar. So, you're not going to get sugar sucking that stuff down, which is a good punch too, by the way. Is it vitamin C deficiency? Gums rot and teeth fall out, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And the last one that or the last question that I had before we'll open it up to is the live chat. Is it true that there were some ships that got attacked? I know that whales was a real thing, but giant squid, I've always wondered if that was true. If there were really squid so big that they would take on a ship. Is that just fiction or is that a real thing?
Well, I know that giant squids are real, but I don't recall any attacks from them.
Yeah. If you've seen them washed up on beaches when they pulled even the giant squid, that's a pretty, limp invertebrate. I don't imagine it's going to haul much of anything down. I'd say it's, I suppose some of the giant octopus could drown a swimmer.
Disappointing.
So speaking of giant things attacking ships, have you guys seen the Meg?
No, I
want to so bad.
It's good. It's pretty good. It's a big fucking shark.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to ask this question because it'll be we'll get too many people pissed off because of the spoiler alerts. But text me after or wherever because I have a question about the movie that I'm dying. I can't wait until I see it in the theaters. I need an answer right now. Now that I know that you've seen it.
It's probably going to be out of theaters soon. So you should probably
get it. That is true. It has been out for a while.
Yeah.
I need a life outside of YouTube.
Yes, I have to admit.
I feel that.
That going on vacation and getting away from YouTube and shit for 5 days was really nice. It's really nice.
Yeah, I think it was with the whole battle thing that we've been dealing with for the past 4 days. It's just mentally draining, I still feel off, even though last night when I got the notification that it had been removed, it was like 1,000 pounds lifted up off your shoulders. But then you get the just draining. But giant squid. I'm kind of sad that that's not true because I had it in my head that these things would literally shoot up, wrap around the mast, pull it down to the side, and then reach another tentacle in and wrap up the captain and pull him in. Come on.
It was always the captain.
The cool thing is going to be when they get footage of sperm whales actually eating these things, because they live off these things apparently, and that's one day they'll get footage of that. That'll be cool. I don't think it's going to be the epic underwater battles. I had a book when I was a kid that showed the giant squid and the sperm whale locked in mortal combat. It's probably not that. They probably just crunch these things, but It'll be cool when
Yeah.
somebody finally gets something like that.
The ocean frightens me in so many ways. Like when I stop and think about it,